It's bloody soft now. You can't bump anyone. Look, it's obviously turned very professional from when I was playing. When I played, we all still worked. So you had an 8 to 5 job, or it basically turned into a 7 to 3 o'clock job because we had to get to training by 3:30, 4 o'clock. And nowadays the guys are on call nearly 24/7. So that's a massive change from when I was playing in the 80s. No, not at all. Not during. It was certainly turning a much more professional game when I joined in the 80s. There may have been a little bit of smoking going on socially, but certainly not during the game or just before the game. On a Friday night, I always like to have a couple of beers just to relax myself, so to be a couple of stubbies on a Friday night after a bowl of pasta. Yeah, well, I remember vividly down at Moorabbin playing against St Kilda, and the whole ground was pretty much a bog heap. You'd run out and your boots would be covered in mud everywhere you went, and to see what the guys are playing on now, it's sort of it's amazing. You know, if there's a bit of sand on it, they complain about it. But you know, we had many games where the MCG, because the cricket pitch in the middle was always really muddy, and the goal square in St R Forward was very sloppy. But yeah, there was a couple of times when at Moorabbin where I'd given away a free kick or somebody had taken a mark and the ball was on the ground, you'd just pick up a heap of mud and throw it all over the footy, and you know, little stupid things like that that'd piss off the opposition. So yeah, I had three coaches. So Brass was my first coach. I had him for a year in '85, and he was a real legend of the game. So for me as a young bloke coming down from the country, having him as a coach was fantastic. But the thing that surprised me most about the way that Brass coached, he was a real teacher. You know, we had legends, Robbie Flower, Peter Moore, Peter Giles, all these legends of VFL, AFL footy being coached by Brass. And I remember sitting in a room of Brass teaching us how we should mark a footy, how we should handball a footy, how we should kick a footy. And I thought, well, if we're at this level, you should know how to do that. But that was the way that he coached, and I remember from Barras. You know, if you were thirsty, like it would be 40 degrees and we'd be training really hard, doing long runs, 10k runs, or we're just doing all these different exercises, and we were all dying of thirst basically. Well, Barras saw that as a sign of weakness if he allowed us to have a drink. So if you compare that to now, like, you know, he'd be dragged over the coals well and truly by all of the dietitians and actually what that did for your body. But yeah, absolutely, it was a sign of weakness if you had a drink when you were training. How it all built up to it was a pre-season in Ballarat, and we had to run through some mountains, and it was private property. And John warned us before we took off on this run that we are running through private property, so you know, make sure you be careful. And he'd set up these guys with a couple of shotguns, and as we were doing our run, these guys were yelling at us to get off their property and started shooting and all this sort of stuff. So it was quite funny when we all got back, because we didn't know what the hell was going on. We just continued on to do our thing, but John found that quite funny.